Inclusive. It does not mean if you want to participate, conform to the cultural or social norm of the majority. It means diversity is so vital that every person will have his or her needs met so that all have access to the same opportunities to learn, play, and live. Hello, my name is Kimmy LaRue, and the topic I'm going to discuss with you today is inclusive recreation. What is inclusive recreation? According to dictionary.com, inclusive recreation, or the adaptive recreation, is a concept whereby people with disabilities are given the opportunity to participate in recreational activities. According to my research paper on the topic, there are many benefits when it comes to inclusive recreation, such as physical, mental, social, psychological, and emotional. But unlike any topic that has benefits, there are always constraints that follow. In the case of inclusive recreation, one of the biggest constraint or con is the lack of awareness, accessibility, and discrimination. But before we go over that, let's take a look back at the history of inclusive recreation. Like my research paper states, history from inclusive recreation dated back to around the mid-1800s, during the time of the Industrial Revolution. A settlement house movement was established during this time, where playgrounds were built for the disadvantaged children and for those who moved from the city to the suburbs. This provided a chance for them to adapt to make the transition easier. By the creation of new playgrounds areas, it also created new recreation activities for the people. What started off as a humanistic well-being concern is now associated with leisure, play, and fun. The founders of recreation shared a similar belief that they were concerned with the quality of life and believed that through the proper use of leisure, they could achieve a higher quality. Or, in other words, in order to experience a happy, healthy, and meaningful life, it is necessary for them to experience leisure. During the Industrial Revolution and periods that followed in the United States, the idea of recreation transitioned from recreation for all to recreation for the norm. Because recreation researchers have spent most of their time trying to find recreational needs of everyone in the community, those with disabilities and the disadvantaged lost their voice, so to say, in concerns for parks and recreation programs. Benefit, or something that is advantage or good, makes improvement and produce desire, effort in another's mind. Inclusion of people with disabilities in community-based recreation is beneficial to all people, as stated from a quote from Anderson and Hine of 2000. Recreation and leisure has been viewed as a component of the community, and that belonging to a community can be considered a civil right, according to civil rights advocates Imwold and Modell. One case study by Friedenberg and Arlinghaus discussed the benefits and positive effects of outdoor and physical recreation. Researchers have been shown that people with disabilities benefit substantially from outdoor leisure. The authors mentioned that outdoor recreation not only provides social, psychological, sociological benefits. Friedenberg and Arlinghaus also state that the benefits received from the certain activity depend on the experience related to those expectations of the participant before the activity or event. For example, if a participant had low expectations for an event and the activity lived up to them and even exceeded those expectations, then their benefits might surpass those of someone who had high expectations for the event that were just barely met. Other researchers, Anderson and Hine, also found that those with disabilities benefit by acquiring new leisure competencies. Friedenberg and Arlinghaus mentioned in their study that in addition to the social, psychological, sociological benefits through recreation and leisure activities, people with benefits also gain a sense of achievement and personal growth. That being said, people with disabilities obtain larger benefits in regard to self-improvement as well as health and social factors when it comes to leisure and recreation programs. Which brings me to Special Olympics.
We all know that sports are a universal language, uniting people on and off the field of play, cutting across the lines of race, ethnicity, education level, social status, and economic background. Special Olympics has grown to be a movement that is not just about the largest population with disabilities in the world, but all about all of us.
before Special Olympics, I thought that was like a nobody. Like nobody special.
Nobody really wanted to take a chance on me because I had a disability. They thought back then that they might catch my disease.
It made me feel normal to be part of an organization.
What it does for us is teaches us self-esteem. And it taught me a lot about myself, about how I can do certain things that people say we can't do because we have an intellectual disability.
Every year I play basketball, and every year I play softball.
My favorite sports is golf, volleyball, softball, and tennis. I play soccer.
I do the bar and the beam.
Try swimming, pretty much a lot of everything.
The Young Athletes Program is to get these kids used to all different types of sports. Owen's been going to Special Olympics since he was 5 years old, I think. He was not physically able to do the things the Special Olympics does. So jumping, throwing, catching, hitting things. The Young Athletes Program has really just helped him with his gross motor skills. It's an amazing program.
School Games is for our elementary and middle school students. The teacher will train students in any particular sport. It ends with a culminating tournament where all the local schools who are also participating in school games come and compete with one another.
Every athlete that comes to Special Olympics, when it's time to go to healthy athletes, you need to go because I can hear more. That means I can understand more. I love healthy athletes.
Unified sports has gotten more people involved. I think it's opened a lot of eyes.
It gives us more opportunity to play and exercise more, just all the way around. You have a good time with other athletes. It's just phenomenal.
Law enforcement has a special relationship with the athletes of the Special Olympics. We are involved in what's called a law enforcement torch run for Special Olympics. Every year we run the Flame of Hope through Southern California. We're a fundraising group. Every year we raise a significant amount of money, which 100% of it goes back into these Special Olympic programs, providing the athletes the opportunity to compete, which gives them all the other benefits.
You can get your family involved, you can get your friends involved, you can get other people in the community involved.
But we just want to be accepted just like everybody else, and to give us a chance and prove that we can make a difference in our lives and in other people.
It just makes you feel you're part of something. Like everybody treats you the same.
It's just amazing, and I couldn't ask for anything more.
It's the people, the coaches, it's everybody that's involved in Special Olympics. That makes Special Olympics so bright and so colorful.
Let me win.
Let me win.
Let me win.
Let me win. But if I cannot win,
If I cannot win,
Let me be brave in the attempt.
Let me be brave in the attempt.
Let me be brave at the attempt.
There have been similar case studies done by Immold and Model, like Special Olympics, stating that there have been calls for recreation and leisure services to integrate individuals with a disability into barrier-free environments, thus creating a zero exclusion policy and not rejecting based on one's ability, facility access, or program access. By the Special Olympics, it gave those with disabilities an outlook and an opportunity to participate in stuff that they normally would not be able to. Through personal observation from working with the Parks and Recreation Department with the town of Gilbert in Arizona, I have observed firsthand of the benefits that the participants receive when it comes to recreation. Whether it's learning more social skills, defining their motor skills, learning new cooking skills, and more. The main thing that I have noticed with recreational activities for those with special needs are that they're involved and they have the sense of belonging, a place where they can all go despite their differences. They are always accepting of new people, even with the recreational leaders and coordinators who do not have disabilities. As you can see here, these are people from the town of Gilbert in our adaptive recreation program. On the right, you see our cheer squad. They just won first in state at our competition last year. They spent all year practicing, rehearsing, learning new moves, choreography, and it's just rewarding, and it paid off to see like we mentioned earlier, the achievement and the sense of they did something and they accomplished something, and that they all did it together and that we were all there to help them. And then on the left, those three at the bowling alley, that was our Special Olympics bowling of last year as well. And again, we practice every Thursday for every week, and they get to better their scores, they see their improvement, and it was just really beneficial to not only observe, but for them to be able to see that progress. When it comes to recreational leisure activities, those with disabilities are often forgotten about or not as high of a priority to those without disabilities. According to the National Recreation and Park Association, has stated that their services and recreational activities are for all people, when in fact those with disabilities participate in less recreational activities than those without. That being said, there is a limit when it comes to inclusive recreation and activities due to agriculture. Like any topic that has a benefit, there are also constraints. When it comes to recreational leisure activities, those with disabilities are often forgotten about or not as high of a priority to those without disabilities. According to the National Recreation and Park Association, has stated that their services and recreational activities are for all people, when in fact those with disabilities participate in less recreational activities than those without. That being said, there is a limit when it comes to inclusive recreation and activities due to agriculture, attitudinal, and programmatic barriers. When it comes to recreation, the three most experienced constraints are interpersonal, and structural. Interpersonal is interacting with everyone else. Interpersonal could be some type of internal conflict, like being shy, and structural could just be like the type of where they were raised and stuff. Another article mentioned that reasoning for constraints include lack of awareness, acceptance, and information about people with disabilities, lack of prepared recreational staff, social inclusion, and physical access, as well as lack of communication and networking between various service agencies and consumers. Those with disabilities tend to have more restrictions or constraints that can inhibit or prevent them from realizing the full suite of desired psychological outcome. The researchers also stated that structural constraints were the most important factor inhibiting or reducing participation in recreation. They also mentioned that the anglers with disabilities are most likely due to health issues associated with constrained mobility, and insufficient or inappropriate support by others are examples of the most prevalent constraints. Through personal observations, like I have mentioned before, for working in Parks and Recreation Department at a community center, while I thought there was only beneficial factors to these participants involved in recreational activities, there are still some constraints that I can see personally, not only from their point of view, but also from the staff point of view, with planning and making sure we have funding and awareness for our activities. There are some activities such as our crafting classes where it's harder for them to participate in because their motor skills aren't as enhanced or they aren't as worked on, so they can get frustrated easily when something doesn't turn out the right way. There are also cooking classes where they have to be able to provide for themselves on their own without any assistance, because we are dealing with sharp objects as like cutting, ovens, stoves, cooking, and stuff like that. They have to be able to follow basic instructions. And sometimes we have participants who are really, really wanting to learn how to cook, but they don't meet the requirements. And as a town, Parks and Recreation, it's a huge liability to even have them in the kitchen with us, so they also have to sign the liability waivers. That being said, there are also some future concerns and recommendations that I have covered in my research paper. We've also come a long way since when we first started with the little playgrounds and play areas. Like mentioned before, we have Special Olympic Games, adaptive rec programs through city and local communities. But we are still not to where we need to be. We have a long road ahead of us. Like I said, several recommendations would be training and educational programs for the providers to carry out in the inclusive recreation programs, networking by using agencies, families, and consumer networks just to get the word out there. Think creatively, and in terms of being creative, have participants lead by example, start with small programs and branch off from there depending on the turnout, the response, the feedback that we have. I know some researchers in my research paper, they did a focus group so they can really target certain key people, ask them specific questions, get specific answers back right away, and not have to do like a mail-out questionnaire. Also thinking of new ways to develop activities to include people with disabilities socially, with people without disabilities, so non-segregated, so include more of mixed people without and people with, and not just having specifically only inclusive recreation, and trying to include everyone, even with those without disabilities. With recommendations, there also comes concerns. One of the biggest concerns with inclusive recreation is the liability that comes with it. Like I mentioned before with the town of Gilbert, when we have the adaptive rec cooking programs, we have all the participants must sign a liability waiver because they are taking that risk of assumption of risk being in the kitchen, using those sharp objects tools, using a stove, using an oven. So they do have to sign that so that we can't be responsible if anyone gets hurt. There's also discrimination. I know it's come a long way since when it first started, but there's still a lot of things that we need to work on, especially when people, like younger ages, when people look different than one another. Younger kids don't quite understand that yet, so just bringing more awareness to that. And one study said that parents will be the overall influence of their children will participate in a recreational leisure activity. That being said, if a parent is not wanting to put their child out there for fear of them being discriminated on, that they won't be accepted, then their parent will prohibit them from being involved in a leisure recreational activity. So bringing more awareness to the parents and the students as well. And there are my references. Thank you for your time.